where you did it the same way.
Absolutely. All right,
Yeah.
so I want to go here. And I want to leave.
Thank you all. And we're going to talk, as said, about my trip to Jerusalem, Jordan, and Egypt. So I just want to take first for to show you where we were. So here is this little country, Israel, surrounded by Jordan over here. And all this, of course, is Egypt, and this is the Sinai. And what we did, this actually was the way we did it. Irene and I toured Israel for the first time in 1987 with our children. I toured Egypt about the country for a possible group, and together we then visited Jerusalem, Jordan, and Egypt with a W.O.R. Joan Holmberg. So what we did was we flew into Tel Aviv. We toured Jerusalem only at this time. Then we went across the Allenby Bridge to Jordan, and we toured a lot of Jordan. We actually did go to Jerash. We went down, we went to Petra, we did go to Wadi Rum, and then we flew back to Amman the same day, with a lot of driving, and flew that same day to Cairo and got there in the evening. So this is the old city. This is the entrance through the Jaffa Gate, and this is the Citadel, the Tower of David, with the entrance to the old city. This was built during the Ottoman Empire, and we weren't very smart, but the first day we did an awful lot of touring and walking, and we walked to the entire ramparts above the Tower of David. And by the end of the walk, Irene was in a great deal of pain. And the following day, we were with somebody who we met who was a doctor in Vietnam and suggested she get a cane, which she did, and took it with us, and we were very glad that she did. So we did that, and then we went to what they call the City of David and Ezekiel's tunnels. Now, there's always a great deal of excavation and work in Jerusalem and in all of Israel, frankly, and this is no exception. So this is where we were. This is our guide, Duran, and this is from the old city of David to the Western world. This predates the city by hundreds of years and provided water to the city, and it's extensively excavated even now. And we were walking, you can see, it's not a great photo, but you can see Irene is up to water, up to her thighs, and we kept walking, and it's somewhat of a new site in Israel. Then it actually exits to the foundation stone of the Western Wall, the Holy of Holies. And you can see where entering it through downstairs, and that is, of course, part of the Western Wall. And there were many people who were praying there, that which is very normal, of course. So here is a model of the Temple Mount. This is a huge model, which is now in the Jewish Museum. So this model shows the Temple Mount in 66 Common Era. This is the same year the Jews revolted against the Roman Empire, resulting in the destruction of the temple and the entire city. So so this is what the Temple Mount looks today. Of course, the first temple was built by King Solomon, son of David, in 957. It was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, and the second temple was built in 516 BC, and lasted almost 500 years until it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. This is the site of the existing Western Wall, which actually is over here. It's really quite far from that. And then the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Dome of the Rock, which of course is this, was built immediately after the destruction of the temple and signifies Muhammad's journey to Jerusalem and ascent to heaven in 692 CE. So it's much different now than it was the first time we were here. There was much easier access to the Temple Mount from the western part of Jerusalem. Now you have to go through a lot of security to get here, and you can't get into the Dome of the Rock unless you're a Muslim. So this is, of course, the Western Wall over here, and you can see in relationship to the Dome of the Rock. So this was, we were here in 87. No, I'm sorry, this one was probably 94. But like Israel is today, there's still a lot of issues, and there's barbed wire separating certain things that you're not supposed to get to. A lot of Hasidim, of course, these two boys. And this, of course, as you probably know, there's compulsory military for both men and women. And these are women, obviously, and you can see them carrying their Uzis. Celebration going to the Western Wall. I'm not sure whether this is a bar mitzvah or not. And they have actually temples and little synagogues off the Western Wall in other places. So the Western Wall, as you know, is here, and it is separated from the men and from the women. And what people do is they take notes, they write notes, and they put it in the crevices of the stones. This is the woman's side, and there's Irene with a friend who was also on our tour. And again, there was, I think, a big bar mitzvah the day that we were here for this. We walked through the Arab Quarter, and actually that's where Irene got her cane. And then we walked up to the Dome of the Rock, and really it was almost empty when we were there this time. We were able to go into the mosque, as I say. The first time we were here with our children, Stephanie, in all her glory, said it smells like feet in here, and we had to shush her before we were thrown out. There I am there. This is the Mount of Olives. This is a famous place where many famous Jews are buried. Golda Meir and many, many more are buried on the here, as well as, and it's actually for the New Testament as well. Jesus had certain things here that happened also on the Mount of Olives. This is again in the Old Quarter. There are different quarters in Jerusalem: the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, and I think Armenian, or there was another one. Anyway, this is the Christian quarter, the Via Dolorosa, and this was obviously where the Stations of the Cross, where Jesus carried his cross on his way to his death. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is where we went in. We were blessed, actually. We never turned down a blessing. And this is also, of course, where Jesus was crucified, or right behind the church, supposedly, and resurrected. There are very many wonderful shops. This is obviously a fruit store, and they're all over. This is from Yad Vashem. We were there, but I did not take any photos. These are stock photos of the museum from the destruction of the Jews during World War II. Unfortunately, the last time we were there, the children's exhibit, which is the most interesting and the most troubling, was closed. This is a sculpture of shoes, of all the shoes, of course, that were taken before they were filed into the gas chamber. One of the very exciting things we did, and I always wanted to do this, was go to Rachel's tomb. Now, Rachel's tomb is really the third most holy place for Jews in Israel, but it is in the West Bank. It is surrounded by Arab towns, cities, and you have to go through a lot of security in order to get there. We had questioned the driver, asked me definitely that I want to go. You sure you want to go? And I said, yeah, I really do, and we did. And this are the walls that were built, I think, in 2008, and they surround both sides of Rachel's tomb. So here we are inside, and Rachel's tomb is a place where a lot of Jews visit because a lot of women visit, new brides, because it is a place where they pray and hope that they can become pregnant. And there's the red string that is surrounded a huge amount of the Rachel's tomb, and you see a lot of the women wearing it. This man, the soldier on the right, was not necessarily a soldier. We found out that he had lost his daughter in a terrorist attack and was here to pray. But notice that he's praying, but he also has a Uzi with him. And again, this is the West Bank. It's surrounded by barbed wire. So this is the Allenby Bridge. This is a bridge that crosses over from Israel to Jordan. There are a few ways you can get across, but this was the one that we chose. And it was really quite a chore and quite a day because we drove from Jerusalem. It's not a long drive. And here's the entrance to the crossing. And you go through here, and the Israeli driver we were with, you go through, and then he drops the luggage, and you've got to take the luggage by yourself, and you go through, you take a cart, and you go to the Israeli side, and you go to the customs officer. And at the time I was in the travel business, and I said to the officer there, and my passport was fine, I said, if you don't mind, please don't stamp Israel in my passport, because I'm going to certain Arab countries that will not allow me in if they show that Israel is marked. And she gave me a dirty, snotty look, but of course she's been through it many times and didn't stamp it and just let me through. Then you take your luggage, you go outside, and you have to wait for a bus. So you wait for this bus, and you get loaded in, you get to the Jordanian side, and you've got the soldiers come on, and you've got to give them your passport. And, you know, you really don't have any choice. They ask me a passport, you're giving me a passport. And we were the last people off the bus, and I think that we were the last people because we were Americans. But anyway, they let us through, they let us into the place. We went through our passports, we got our luggage, put it on a cart, and we went outside, and our driver from the Jordanian side was waiting for us and drove us to Amman, to our hotel in Amman. This gorgeous, does not the Mississippi, this is the Jordan River in all its glory. It's obviously not very wide or very big. So our first sites in Amman, right outside of Amman, was a place called Jerash. As you can see, they don't speak English very well. Be sure that you got your tickets. And we got our tickets and went. And it really is an amazing place. This was built, I think, from about the 8th century BC. Give me a second here. Let me get my notes. This was the first built by the Romans in the 1st century and flourished until the mid-8th century. And it was very extensive, as you can see. And quite frankly, they kept it up very, very well. Irene, with our guide, this was part of the Joan Hamburg trip, but the Joan Hamburg trip really began in Egypt, but some of us chose to go to Jerusalem and Jordan, or just Jordan, which this group did. And we met them in Jordan. Very expensive. These are bagpipers who did Yankee Doodle for us, knowing that we were American. And I love the look on this guy's face, how proud he was that standing at attention, that he played so well. We then drove a couple of hours to Mount Nebo, which is the place where Moses, God bless you, Moses, as you know your Old Testament, Moses was not allowed through the desert, was not allowed after 40 years to go into Israel, but he was allowed to look at it from this overlooking on a clear day. You can see Jerusalem, actually, you can see Israel, and supposedly he is buried here. Nobody knows exactly where Mount Nebo Moses is buried. We then drove a long way, about 4.5 to 5 hours to Petra. And we got there late at night, and we went to the Movenpick Hotel, which is the best hotel there. And early in the morning, we got up and, of course, went and were picked up by a guide, and we went to the entrance to Petra. So Petra was possibly settled as early as 9000 BC. It's in southern Jordan, and there are tombs, and Bedouins still live there. You're going to see the treasury in a few minutes. It is the most elaborate structure carved out of sandstone. Those of you who like Indiana Jones will remember there are scenes from Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade were filmed here as he enters the treasury, supposedly enters the treasury to get the chalice, but let's see. So here is, we're waiting, trying to figure out what to do. A lot of people took horses or carriages or whatever it is to, that obviously looks like an elephant. But we decided to make a long walk through. And if those of you know the movie and see this all the time, you see this walkway, which is probably about a mile through the mountain into where you'll see. So here's us, that's Irene. Irene, we're ready to, and this is the most beautiful view in a way, because you can see it, part of it, you can see the sun on it, and you just walk through here, and then it opens up there. And this is their treasury. This was what their treasury, money and everything was done. Now, they really, in the movie, they went through here and on the other side and blah, blah, blah. Here, there really isn't very much to see inside. It really is carvings and whatever there's really nothing else. But it really is quite an amazing building, quite an amazing structure. So then what we did was, again, Petra is an awful lot more than just the treasury. As I say, there are people still living here, nomads, Bedouins still living here. And look at the size of it. You can see the scale, obviously, how big it is. Look at the size of the people and the building itself. It's unbelievable. The policeman on horseback. This guy was shuttling back and forth with passengers, get them in and get them out. This guy was trying to sell his donkey. I don't mean sell it, but he was selling it to ride unsuccessfully many times. This guy probably had the first cell phone in Petra. Bedouins, I say, still live here. Doing water. I'm going to take it at their word that these really are Bedouins who live here as opposed to actors who are just paid by the government. I don't know, I really don't, but I'm going to take their word for it that they actually were living here. So it almost looks like the treasury. We decided to do it the easy way, and we took the horseback back to the entrance, quite frankly, an awful lot slower than Indiana Jones. This is a a mural of King Hussein and his son, who will be the new king, the next king. And this was really one of the highlights of our trip. This is what we went to Wadi Rum. Now, Wadi Rum, for those of you who know your history, was the place where Lawrence of Arabia, who joined the Arabs against the Turks in World War I, went all the way across the desert, and the opposite way of which most people would come from the sea, came from behind and captured Damascus, and actually was a hero of World War I. And he was a hero in Great Britain, where he was from. He was knighted by the king or whatever. And unfortunately, I think he died in a automobile accident. It was quite beautiful in its own way. There are still, a lot of this is the guy leading his camels on a caravan. But I thought that the architecture, the sandstone was beautiful. There's a shepherd with his sheep. And desolate, you can imagine, obviously, they had their army on camels go all the way across, all the way to Syria. This was our driver. He was a good driver, got us there safely. So now we had a very long ride, as I say, from Wadi Rum back all the way back to Amman, where we caught a night plane and arrived in Cairo that night, and and then started touring the following morning. And by the way, I can repeat it time and time again, but it was so hot. We were there in September, and that was the time the group had to go from the radio, whatever it is. But if we had our druthers, if you have your druthers and you're going, you should pick the winter time, which is much, much cooler. So this is a breeding stand, or a stand, and this is where Anwar Sadat was assassinated. He was right here, and they came up and his own army murdered him. And he's buried here, and this is also the tomb of the unknown soldier. That was our first site. This is the City of Living that was built right on top of the City of the Dead. The City of the Dead were the poorest of poor people who lived in the tombs and lived in the graves of Cairo, and they built another city on top of it. A mosque with a beautiful, beautiful courtyard. Anytime you want to go into a mosque, you've got to take your shoes off. Some of them ask you to wash your feet before you go into the mosque. This is a home of a British officer in the 1870s, Geyer Anderson, and we were both amazed at the lattice work, the metal lattice work all around this home. It was really quite beautiful. Again, we did this before the tour actually began. We were at the Four Seasons Hotel in Cairo, right on the Nile, and it's very hard to even talk or explain the Nile. The Nile is so mysterious and so beautiful. You could stand out, you could sit out on your terrace for hours watching the boat traffic below. The traffic was there day and night, and it was really quite mesmerizing to sit out there and see the traffic on the Nile. Well, of course, the following day you get up, and the first thing you want to do, of course, is go to the pyramids. Now, the pyramids are in the plateau is maybe a 15-minute drive from downtown Cairo. It's amazing how close it really is, but it is very close. We were there, as I say, not overly too many tourists. It was not overrun at all. It was very well organized. And here we are in front of one of the pyramids. I mean, we all know this, of course, but you don't realize it until you get up close that these pyramids are built by each individual stones that weigh tons and tons. And of course, slaves and whoever were those who were building these pyramids. I'm not sure. There's talk, of course, that the Israelis who were, in here for 400 years who built the pyramids, but I've been told that that's not true. But anyway, it's very interesting to get up close and see the individual stones that make up the pyramid. Here's another one that I thought was interesting, this guy here. So never know whether they are actually Bedouins or they're really actors. This guy, I thought, was too well dressed. His camel was too well dressed. I think he had a job by the government to go back and forth, and have people like me take photos. That's what his job is. And if it was, God bless him. So here are the camels waiting for riders like us. And here we are on top of the camel. Now, the camel ride is free. You can get on for free. You ride for free. The only time you have to pay is if you want to get off. So that's the only time you have to pay. So I have a story about, not about this particular picture, but I do have a story about this. As you can see, the vastness of the plain and the vastness of the Giza plain here. It's all desert and surrounded. When I was here in '93, I was with a group of travel agents, and some of us decided that we had time, we wanted to go horseback riding. And so we knew that if we get horseback riding, we'd be on Arabian horses and we'd feel like Lawrence of Arabia. It would be amazing. So we go to the stables, and about 3 or 4 of us, and we're actually on Arabian horses. And I asked one of the men, "You coming with us?" "No." "Go, enjoy, go." I said, "Well, how do we get back?" So they said, "The horses know when you turn around and you just head that way, they know that that's where the barn is, and that's where they're going to go, and they will get you back. I promise." Okay. So there was a young lady with us, and she had a camera, and she didn't want to put it around her neck. So I had a backpack, a nylon backpack, and she asked me if I could carry her camera, and I put it in the backpack. And we were off. And when I say we were off, we were galloping, and I know how to ride, and I've ridden all my life, and I've worked on ranches. We galloped as fast as I've ever galloped in my whole life. And sure enough, hours we were on there, nobody bothering us. You can't do this today, but going up to the pyramids, behind the pyramids, up to the Sphinx, behind the Sphinx. Finally, we had enough, and we go back, and sure enough, the horse goes back to the barn, knows where he is, and I get off, and I go into my backpack to get the girl her camera, and the nylon had ripped, and her camera got lost in the desert. We actually went back and tried to find it, but I don't think you're going to find a little camera in the desert, in the Negev, or wherever it is. So we lost it. And anyway, it was really one of the highlights of my life, frankly, to do that. It was very exciting.
How many are there?
How many what?
Pyramids.
I think there are 4 of the largest, but there are a couple of smaller ones. So this is the Sphinx, also done for a pharaoh in about 2500 BC. And you can see that he's missing his nose, and there are stories that it was shot by a soldier in Napoleon's army. That actually is supposedly not true, because Napoleon did invade and conquer Egypt. Here's another picture of it. They have sound and light shows there, by the way. I think we went to a sound and light show at the pyramid. Those of you, know what a sound and light show is, sounds and light. And they show what it is. It really was. This is a boat supposedly 4,500 years old, Cheops boat. Now, I can't keep my deck up for 5 years before I need to have somebody to do it, but this is 4,500 years old. Another pharaoh. By the way, the British Museum, we'll talk about it a little later. So then we went to Memphis, which is right outside of Cairo, really very, very close, and for other pyramids. And this is very interesting because this pyramid was built about 500 years before the other pyramids. It's called the Step Pyramid. And it is the first pyramid that was made of stones, not mud. I'm not going to go in, but you can see here, this is all stones, and it went up, it's called the Step Pyramid. Police there. And we were in Memphis. We were here in Memphis on September 11th, and we went to a hotel, and it was quite moving. I got up and gave a small speech, and we had a minute or two of silence for the people of 9/11. And I went after the bus and sat down on the bus and fainted and fell off the chair. And people thought I was dead, but I wasn't. I just fainted. It was so hot, so hot. I won't see here. This is an interesting guy. So this guy was security on our trip. Now, he was with us the whole trip. You can see that his suit jacket is a little bit large. And the reason his suit jacket is a little large is because he has a machine gun underneath it on his back. And he had that for the entire trip and on our bus. And to talk about on the bus was if there was any trouble, who would he aim the Uzi at? So we don't know, but we're hoping he did aim it at the bad guys. But luckily, we did not need his services with his Uzi. This is another mosque, a big one. This is the Ben Ezra Jerusalem, Ben Ezra Synagogue in Cairo. It's still working. We went in, there were people praying in there. We weren't allowed to take pictures. That's then one of the most exciting things is, I'm going to get my notes here if you don't mind, because make sure I'm right. We took a flight. We took a plane from Cairo to Luxor, and this is the ancient city of Thebes, which is really a huge open-air museum. By the way, I didn't talk about it because I don't have photos. We weren't allowed to take photos of the Egyptian Museum. The Egyptian Museum, even when we were there, is one of the marvels of the world. Filthy, dirty, unorganized, disorganized, but the exhibits they had, for example, the exhibit of King Tut made ours in the city in New York look like nothing. It was unbelievable. Well, they finally moved everything and they built a new museum near the pyramids and the Sphinx. And I understand it's supposed to open this year and it's supposed to be magnificent. So we took a flight from Cairo to Luxor, and this is the ancient city of Thebes. And we call it home of the world's greatest open-air museum. The temples of Karnak and Luxor, and there are also two statues of Pharaoh from about 3200 BC. So we did a sound and light show here as well. You see these all over because they're in every Egyptian movie ever made. I mean, and these are real. This is not soundstage. Look at the size. Look at the between the people, the humans, and the scale. The hieroglyphics on them. Look at the hieroglyphics. Look how it looks like it was carved yesterday. This is a famous one. You see this in every movie ever made, going down that corridor with the two pharaohs outside. Obelisks were all over. A lot of them obviously were either given as gifts to other countries. Of course, Place de la Concorde in Paris and many other places. 3200 BC. So this is our guide of Sama, and this is now again we're on the boat now. We got on the boat in here in Luxor, Luxor, excuse me, on our way down the Nile or up the Nile. And now we're entering the Valley of the Kings. So the Valley of the Kings is where the pharaohs were buried. And they were hidden, of course, because they didn't want grave robbers to come in and take all the jewels and whatever. But they all failed. There was, I don't think, the only one, really, one of the only ones was King Tut's. We'll talk about that. So this is the entrance to King Tut's tomb. Look, not very impressive, right? He reigned from 1334 to 1325 BC. He was only there 9 years. And there was nothing now left inside when we were there, except wall paintings. This was discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, somewhat intact. And there were huge riches here, mummies, artifacts, jewels, etc. that were all moved to the Egyptian Museum. And of course, as I said, it was much, much more extensive than those at the New York exhibit. Other people decided to explore even further. We decided not to, but you can go higher and see other tombs that were hidden in the rocks. This one is Queen Hatshepsut's, excuse my temple. She was the only female pharaoh from 1478 to 1457 BC. There was a terrible tragedy here in 1997, where 70 tourists died in an Islamic terrorist attack. There was an attempt to overthrow the Egyptian government. They actually went across this whole Sinai to get into the site, and they, as I say, they killed 70 people. So now we're back on the boat and going to the Nile. And really, this was an amazing, amazing experience. Just sailing softly, quietly, slowly down the Nile. It was so peaceful but beautiful. And music, some of the guys who worked on the boat. And again, you're right up close because the Nile is very, very narrow. And you can see scenes of people living and working on the Nile. They built their own little villages. There's a fisherman. Look how narrow the fertile land is before it reaches the desert. So that's the only way they can grow their crops and get water or whatever it may be is in that area. Very, very narrow. They did have a swimming pool on board, more of a plunge pool, but it was used all the time because, again, I can't even describe the heat. As we were docked or even sailing, these boats would come by and try to sell us stuff. So they would put their wares in these bags here and then send it up to the deck. You would take what you want, you bargain with them, send down with your money, and everybody was happy. We would stop along the way and visit various other temples. Again, this guy is too good looking to be anything other than an actor who works for the government, working in the again, another fisherman doing. Farm animals as well, of course, swimming. Really, look how, again, look at how narrow, arid, and fertile land is to the desert. And these little boats. We did go to the Nasser Dam, the high dam. I'm sorry, Aswan Dam, excuse me. But before we could go, you can see I took this photo from my bus window. There was a car that had been parked there for a while, and they were inspecting the car to make sure it wasn't booby trapped. Then once we found that it wasn't booby trapped, we got off the bus and we were able to get on there. See Lake Nasser and the dam. Aswan Dam is the third biggest dam in the world, next to Lake Powell and now the one in China. Other temples. And again, we got off into smaller boats and toured. Again, people coming on board to sell their wares. A little dancing. They had somebody with an instrument on board. I love this picture, not only because of my wife Irene, but if you look at everybody, all the other people in the picture, you can just see how happy they are and how relaxed they are sailing on the Nile. And whoever thought they would be sailing on the Nile? And it really was magic. We went back to the main boat and they had entertainment at night. So this, they had a dress-up night, and Irene and Joan Hamburg there in the middle from WR Radio bought a gown. Again, we got off big boats and went to little boats to visit Temple of Horus and Edfu, and then Kamondre. We visited some. You can see this one. We visited this one at night. You see it's lit up. Walking through lit up. This is an unfinished obelisk. This is the felucca. I love this photo. It's a traditional sailboat built out of wood. And we did sail and we did go on those for a short while. And again, we did it at sunset. Magic. So now we went back to Aswan and we flew to Abu Simbel. So Abu Simbel are two temples in southern Egypt near the Sudan border. They were carved into the mountainside in the 13th century BC. And the other was for his queen Nefertari. And Ramses II was really one of the most famous pharaohs in Egypt. There was discussion that he was actually the pharaoh when the Jews were leaving Egypt after 400 years, but I think that has been discounted. Anyway, the complex was relocated in its entirety from 1966 to 98 on an artificial hill high above the Aswan Dam Reservoir. If the complex had not been moved, the site would have been submerged during the creation of Lake Nasser. So they did that here, they did it here, they moved it, and the entire site was carefully cut into large blocks up to 30 tons each. So they did that and moved it to another place, which is here, obviously, similar to what the Chinese did, where they relocated so many of their people and whatever, when they were building their own dam. It's very hard. Well, you can see the scale, the size. Look at how small, again, the people are relative to the size of this. When I was here in '93, it was like open season. You could walk anywhere, take things, whatever it may be. And I had people, not me, we had people walking on top of these ledges, getting close and taking pictures. Not anymore. So there's one you can really see the scale. And that one's a good one to see the scale of Irene. So they had two different temples, very unusual. One for the pharaoh and one for his wife. His wife, in those days, you didn't think, but he obviously loved this one very, very much and built a temple for her as well. So this is the one for him. And then that's one that's still his. This is hers. And you walk in here, and the other one too, there's really nothing in there, but there are wall coverings. There's still paintings and everything in there. But of course, any of the riches would have been taken out before that. Here's really the last slide. And this is Bob Drum, who owned General Tours at the time, and was the tour operator who left there, Irene and I, and of course, Sala. So the trip really was so exhilarating, but absolutely exhausting and so hot. We didn't go in September, as I say. However, having the ability to see several wonders of the world, ancient world, and so much more, truly made this a trip of a lifetime. And it really was very, very special. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions that I can't answer? Because I can't answer most of them.
You said in the beginning that you couldn't go into a mosque, and then they.
We were able to go into the mosque. We weren't able to go, no. When we first went there, except for the last trip, you could go into all the mosques, but you could not go into the Dome of the Rock, Al-Aqsa Mosque. We went originally when Stephanie Elizabeth was with us. But the last time we could peek in, but you couldn't go in unless you were a Muslim. Other mosques was not an issue.
You have to be a Muslim.
Yes, yes. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I was going to point out, we went in 2008 to Cairo, Luxor. We saw the sound and light show at the pyramids. Displayed this cheesy movie and narrated by Omar Sharif. But people don't realize, unless you're that side, is how close that is to the development of Giza. In fact, there was a question on who wants to be a millionaire and what the thing that's, which one of these things, is near the entrance of the pyramids. And I knew almost nobody would get it. Everybody, well, the answer is KFC. You can see from the.
Mine, I can't do it.
Right, I've got a picture, of something like a donkey attacks a motorcycle, the Sphinx arms, apartments, and the Sphinx. And the city is right up on that.
Yeah, and as I say, it really is amazing how close it is to even Cairo, downtown Cairo. There's a beautiful hotel right out there. I forgot the name of it. It come to me. That's a luxury hotel right there, almost directly by the pyramids.
We stayed on the Marriott, I think, on Rhoda Island in the Nile. And that was spectacular, because especially when you come out from hiking through the desert and down in water. Leaves, it just.
Yeah, depending when you're there.
Jerry,
Yes.
I have a question for Molly Craddock. She says,
Hi, Molly.
she says, wonderful. Thank you, Jerry. Looks beautiful. If you could go back, what is the one thing you would do that you didn't do?
I probably, if it was the one thing I did, I would probably go to the Egyptian Museum now that it's completely finished and moved, or almost being moved, because it was such a mess when we were there.
Put the drops in my eyes. I've got to watch the other.
Couldn't see very much.
Yes.
That's really probably what I would do.
And then
Wait, I've got to turn this off.
Natalie said, great presentation, thank you, and that's Bruce and Natalie. Molly said, gotcha, thank you so much.
Gotcha. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? You can type it into
Anything
the
else?
chat, or you
Hi,
can
Don.
mute
Hi, Beth.
yourself if you'd like.
You're late.
No.
All right. Sorry. Okay. All right. They don't. No, the canal, having another Suez Canal, thank you, is higher north, and it doesn't go through that part. Am I right, Bob?
It's on Suez is to the east.
Yeah.
And it cuts off the Sinai Peninsula. It really starts, I think, in that area. It cuts past the Sinai to the east, and mainland is on the west.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
What were the meals like on the trip?
What are the meals like on the trip?
Let's say there were many, many ill people.
You don't go to Egypt and not expecting to get sick. Everybody gets sick. It's just a matter of the degree. We were very lucky. Actually, the first time when I was there in '93, we were with a small group and I became very ill to me. And you're constantly in the bathroom and I slept for 24 hours. But when I got up, I felt perfect and I was able to sightsee again. Everybody does get sick. There are now pills called magic pills, yellow pills, right, Irene, that we got go ahead.
Bob Trump, who was head of general tours at the time, did come with us. And he had a stack of what he called magic yellow pills. And they really were magic. I mean, anyone who's had stomach issues while you're traveling. And we tried to get them here, couldn't get it. I tried to get it analyzed, whatever it was, but they really did work. I got sick, interestingly enough, you saw the picture of me with John Amber. And both of us the following morning, were ill as soon as we got up. And Jerry went to Bob and asked for a pill. And I went on tour. As Joan did. I mean, it just was incredible. Fast forward, I got a few extras and I kept them with me. And when we were on another trip in Africa, there was this poor man who just couldn't get
We were
better.
on safari.
And you really don't want to offer medication. Everyone is different. And he was trying everything. He really was having a tough time. And I said, if you would like, this is what it is. It worked. Don't know what it was, certainly don't have any more.
But to
If
answer
we ever
your,
did it again, I would get in touch with Bob.
one thing, Bob, before, so I want to talk, you asked me about the meals. What were the meals? They were fine. You had meat, you had lots of vegetables. You tried to absolutely stay away from the salad. You really didn't want to go anything that was washed because they're going to wash it in the water that's obviously not purified. So you had to be careful, but even no matter how careful you were, but the food was fine. Yes, Bob.
I was gonna say, what we were told was not only don't drink any water, it's not from the bottle, don't eat any salad, and don't even brush your teeth, don't even rinse your toothbrush.
Yeah.
Now, I never got sick, but my wife said I didn't realize until later she had to get in for salad. She had a salad and she paid for it.
Yeah.
Your daughter, hold on, your daughter posted, wow.
Oh, hi, Elizabeth.
He said, wow, I'm hearing about my parents drug tripping.
And she's a doctor.
I have a question. Was there any time when either of you were frightened or scared or nervous?
No. I don't know, not really. No, we just never felt, even walking the Arab quarter of Jerusalem or wherever we were in Jordan, whatever, we were treated beautifully. They trust me, they want tourism. They desperately want tourism.
So particularly in Cairo, and traveling as a single woman, you feel like
Again, I don't, tough question. You obviously want to make sure that when you're there, you've done your homework in advance and you've got a tour guide wherever you go. You're being taken by private car. They're not letting you go in and get a taxi by yourself. So if the answer is yes, but if you go, I just make sure you just don't just go to Cairo. Make sure you do the rest of the trip. Yes.
I
Beth.
want to make a comment about the food. We were there for years.
Oh, that's right. Our friends, Don and Beth were there. Go ahead.
We were with a real scholar group, and it was so wonderful. Just amazing. But after a couple of nights, everyone was complaining about when we get chicken every night. And what I started though to understand very quickly was how privileged we were to get anything, even chicken. And because we were eating it was cooked, to your point, it was the best they could do to feed us, because all around us were people who were incredibly poor. And the more I went out the countryside, the more I started to understand whatever they were feeding us, again, as Americans traveling there,
I don't, I will mention it because my good friend Don did have an accident on, why don't you tell us briefly what happened? I want to.
Jerry, are you gonna embarrass your friend?
I'm not, I don't know, am I gonna, if I'm gonna embarrass you, don't tell us.
I was traveling in Egypt and I, just a little fall at the airport, actually, I didn't trip in my shoelace or something, went down, but nothing else. Apparently fractured my hip.
Oh, my God.
And she didn't want to go home because she wanted to go with me, so I persevered for over a week, just sitting on the bus and going to the hotel while she had a lot of fun. But the same day I broke my leg, I had a severe diarrhea attack
Oh,
in the airport and on the plane, so
Yeah.
it was like the worst day I ever had. in my
Yeah,
life.
this is a little too much information.
You
Thank you for sharing.
You asked.
I wanted part of it. I wanted the broken leg. I didn't want anything else. Anyway,
have a yellow pill.
no, you didn't have the yellow pill.
Okay, everyone on our trip did get sick, but then everybody recovered.
Yeah, you know, here we talk about it and everything like that, and who, you know, people would say, what the hell would I want to go to a place like that and have stomach issues? But it really is, it is a trip of a lifetime. It really is. It's just, I know it's not on Joy Kerwin's bucket list, but it is really a,
I'll stay with Israel.
that's right. You want to go, Karen?
I would
Just want to let everyone know that Jerry's computer has died. That's why you, Paula and Elizabeth, that's why you can't hear or see anything. And I'm gonna be closing down with Zoom. And I apologize for the inconvenience.